Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be ranking plant-based omega-3 sources in a tier list to hopefully help you decide what you can be consuming to get enough of this essential fatty acid. So I know a lot of you liked my protein tier list video that I did a few weeks back, and I thought it would be fun to do it for another nutrient. If you have any suggestions on different topics that I could do a tier list video for, let me know in the comments down below. I like to use these videos as an opportunity to teach along with entertain. So I'll definitely be dropping lots of nuggets of info along the way. So definitely pay attention if you like to learn, because I guarantee you're going to learn something. So feel free to skip ahead to the tier list if you just want to see that part, but stick around if you're curious and you want to learn about omega-3s, you want to learn the difference between ALA, EPA, and DHA, how much we need, what are the benefits of keeping a good omega-6 to 3 ratio, and a whole bunch of other information. So interestingly enough, omega-3s and omega-6s are the only fats that are considered to be essential for the human body. This means that we have to obtain them from our diet. We cannot make them ourselves. So this doesn't mean like the other forms of fat, like monounsaturated fats that we get from avocados or olives, are bad for us by any means. There's still lots of healthy fats out there that we can eat. But I just think it's interesting to know that our body can make all the fats that it needs from just consuming omega-3s and omega-6s, provided that we're eating enough. Omega-3s are separated into two main categories, short chain and long chain fatty acids. So the short chain fatty acid omega-3 ALA is what we get from some plant foods. The long chain fatty acids EPA and DHA are what's found in fish, seafood, and then also some algae. While EPA and DHA are present in fish, they don't actually make it themselves. They get it from their food. So when fish consume phytoplankton, which has consumed microalgae, which we know contains EPA and DHA, it accumulates in the fish's tissues. So unlike fish, we can actually make EPA and DHA ourselves from ALA. So to be clear, we get ALA from flax, chia, and other foods that we're going to be talking about in the list today, and then we can go on from there and make EPA and DHA. However, there are a few factors that affect how well we convert ALA into EPA and DHA. The main one being our omega-6 consumption. So because omega-6 and omega-3s compete for the same enzyme, the more omega-6 that we consume, the more that enzyme is being used up over there, the less it's going to be able to convert ALA into EPA and DHA. Another factor is whether you're male or female. Females tend to convert ALA to EPA and DHA better than males do, and this most likely has to do with estrogen. So this makes sense on an evolutionary kind of scale, because women, when they're pregnant and they're creating a baby inside, are going to have an increase in estrogen, and we know that DHA especially is very important for the proper development of a baby. So that just makes sense that women will convert it a little bit better. Some health condition will affect the conversion as well, like those who suffer from diabetes seem to convert it less. Alcohol consumption negatively affects the conversion. So does a high-fat diet and some medications too, and then there's also a genetic component to it as well. Why are omega-3s important? Well, since they are a fat, they have many of the same health benefits as all fats do. They're important for our hormone health. They help us absorb fat-soluble vitamins. Each cell that we have is surrounded by a phospholipid bilayer, if you remember that from biology class way back. But omega-3s in particular are especially good for our overall health, especially when combined with a low 6:3 ratio. The standard American diet is far too high in omega-6s and too low in omega-3s, which is why the focus should be on balancing the two. So a ratio of 6:3, close to 4:1 is probably ideal, but most standard Americans eat something closer to 15:1 and sometimes even higher. Keeping this ratio in check is great for helping to lower inflammation, keeping autoimmune inflammatory conditions in check. It's great for helping with asthma. It's good for our cardiovascular systems and so many chronic diseases. DHA in particular is important for eye health and brain health as well. So we definitely want to make sure that we're getting enough of all of these. The RDI of omega-3s changes depending on the source that you look at, but from the NIH, it's 1.6 grams for adult males and 1.1 grams for adult females. And this is for all omega-3s. So they don't actually have an official recommendation for the amount of EPA and DHA that you need to get. The recommendation is just for all omega-3s. But most sources, when I look at it for optimal health, recommend somewhere between 200 and 500 milligrams of EPA and DHA combined. As I mentioned previously, conversion rates differ so much from person to person on how much ALA from plants you're going to convert into EPA and DHA. So it's really hard to say how much one person is going to need to consume in order to make sure that they're getting enough. When I was researching for this video, I found reports saying as much as 15% of ALA can be converted into EPA and DHA, and as low as 0%. But I really have a hard time believing that a vegan who's eating a healthy diet with a good omega-6 to 3 ratio, who's eating lots of omega-3s, is going to convert zero ALA into EPA and DHA. But because of this, some people might want to supplement, and you can do that with an algae oil, which is going to be on our list, and we'll talk about a little bit later. So I know that's a lot, and hopefully I haven't confused you too much, but I think it's pretty interesting to learn about, and it's good to know about omega-3s and why they're important and what the differences between the long chain and the short chain ones are. So now that we've done all that, let's get into the list. So for those who aren't familiar with a tier list, basically goes from S, the top, which is supreme, and then it just goes down in a regular grading order that you're used to from school. So the factors that I'm going to be using to grade or score each one of these is going to be mainly the total omega-3 content, and I'm going to have a graph to go along with that so you guys can follow along easily, and then also the omega-6 to 3 ratio, and then to a lesser extent how likely we are going to be to eat these foods, how nutritious they are overall, and then a few other factors like cost and taste and that sort of stuff. So the graph that I have is total omega-3 content per 100 calories of food, not 100 grams per food. This just makes the most sense to me. Some people didn't like this in my protein tier list video, but for me, this makes the most amount of sense because 100 grams of chia seeds, for instance, is 500 calories, and we're just not going to be consuming that much chia seed. But for most of the items on this list, 100 calories is a pretty reasonable amount to be consuming. The first food we're going to be looking at are flax seeds. So flax seeds are actually the highest omega-3 rich whole food on this list at 4.3 grams or 267% of your RDI in 100 calories. They're also very low in omega-6s with a 4:1 3:6 ratio. So it actually has more omega-3s than it does 6s. Obviously a super nutritive food. It's really high in cancer-fighting lignans, it's high in antioxidants, it's great for helping to control cholesterol, it's a great source of fiber, but keep in mind you do have to grind or mill the flaxseed in order to absorb the beneficial nutrients from it. And that is where we get a little bit of an issue. So when you grind flaxseed, it actually releases cyanide from the flaxseed shell. So obviously not a good thing, but in order to get acute toxicity, you're gonna have to consume a whole lot of flaxseed at one time. So this is not the concern, but the concern is what is a safe amount that we can consume daily and consume over a long period of time. So Dr. Greger actually has a really interesting video on this topic, and of course he goes over all the research that there is on it, and it's really educational. So if you're interested, I'll put a link in the description box down below. Definitely check it out. Basically what he concludes and what all the research concludes is that 1.5 tablespoons of ground flaxseed per day is completely safe. And if you watch the videos and you check out the studies that they've referenced, there is a whole bunch of contingency built into that, something like 100 times or whatever. So it's you have to eat a lot of this stuff in order for it to be a concern, but it is a concern, and there definitely needs to be a bit more research on it because there's just mostly rat studies, and that's what Dr. Greger talks about in his video. It seems that the finer the flaxseed is ground, the more cyanide is released because we don't really digest the outer seed of the flax, and that is where the cyanide is. So you're best off buying milled flaxseed, which is pretty much just cracked open rather than really finely ground flax, if you're concerned about this. So if there wasn't this whole cyanide deal, it would definitely be an S-tier source of omega-3s. And I still think it's a great source, and I don't think that it's a food that we should avoid. But because you do kind of have to be a little bit concerned with the amount that you're consuming, it's gonna go in the A tier. And with all that being said, I've been putting it in my smoothies many times a week. I put about a tablespoon in, and I'm totally fine. Next up are chia seeds. So once just a fun, funky growing pet that you would put on your desk is now an omega-3 rich superfood. Do any of you remember those chia pets? Those things were awesome. I know, I remember there was the Bob Ross chia head. Anyways, I love chia seeds. They're really nutritious, a really decent source of protein, a good source of calcium, iron, magnesium, selenium, and a really good source of omega-3s. So not quite as high as flaxseed, but still very high, containing 3.7 grams in 100 calories with an amazing omega-3 to 6 ratio. So just like with flax seeds, and a lot of people don't know this, is you have to grind them in order to absorb them optimally. So just like flax seeds, grind them. Unlike flax seeds, no cyanide. So they're really easy to put in smoothies. You could have them in oatmeal as well. You could even just like have it in water, down that. You could put it in like pasta sauce. It's easy to disguise in some sauces. Relatively cheap as well. So in my opinion, chia seeds are an S tier source of omega-3s. Up next on the list, hemp seeds. Protein packed, full of zinc and other minerals, really easy to incorporate into meals. I just like pouring them on top of salads and stir fries. They're great in smoothies. You can put them in sauces. You can even make hemp milk out of them. In 100 calories, you get just over the RDI at 1.7 grams, and these are a little higher in omega-6s than the chia and flax seeds that we just looked at, but still a really great ratio. So I think hemp seeds definitely belong in the A tier. Next are walnuts. I think walnuts are probably the highest omega-3 containing nut that there is out there at 1.4 grams per 100 calories. A decent omega-6 to 3 ratio, pretty similar to hemp seeds, but not nearly as nutritious as hemp seeds. They're pretty easy to eat on their own. Some people like them, some don't. Not the cheapest item on the list, that for sure. I think they belong in the B tier. The next one up is one I bet you didn't think that you'd see on this list, and that is kale. So while dark leafy greens don't have a ton of fat, they actually do contain a decent amount of omega-3s for the small amount of fat that they contain. So I'll admit 100 calories of kale is quite a bit, but when you cook it, it actually isn't all that much. So it works out to be about 2.3 cups of cooked kale is 100 calories, and that provides you with about 1 gram of omega-3s. The omega-3 to 6 ratio is great, containing far fewer omega-6s than 3s. So obviously kale, great in smoothies. You can throw it in stir fries, kale chips, tons of different ways to use kale. And I love it. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I actually really like kale. It's extremely nutritious, and I bet you didn't know this. In 100 calories of kale, there's 8 grams of protein. So that is quite a decent little bit of protein there in just a green. So where to put this one? Since you have to eat quite a bit of it, I think it has to go below walnuts. Let's say C tier. Next up is a controversial one, canola oil, also known as seed oil, also known in the carnivore community as the cause of all your health problems. So I wanted to include this because it actually has quite a bit of omega-3s, and the omega-3 to 6 ratio is actually pretty good as well. So don't shoot the messenger, I'm just reporting on the facts. So in 100 calories, which is just less than a tablespoon of canola oil, you get 1 gram of omega-3s and just over 2 grams of omega-6s. So actually a pretty good ratio. So if you've been watching this channel for a while, you'll know that I'm not a huge fan of using a bunch of oil in my cooking. Just any oil in general. It doesn't really matter what type. Most of them, or all of them, are actually very high in calories, providing very little nutrition as far as vitamins and minerals go. Sure, they contain maybe a little bit of vitamin E. They might contain some antioxidants, but nothing that we're not going to be able to get from food that contains a lot more vitamins and minerals and fiber and all that other sort of stuff. But yes, some of them do contain some omega-3s, and canola oil contains quite a bit. So where to put this one? Well, because it's so heavily processed, lacking in nutrients, it promotes some of the most extreme monocropping in agriculture. I'm going to put it in the D tier, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe it deserves to go lower, maybe higher. Let me know. I figured I'd throw avocado in here because a lot of people seem to think that it has a good amount of omega-3s in it, which it really doesn't. Hardly has any at all. Most of the fats in avocado are monounsaturated fats, not the polyunsaturated fatty acids that omega-3s are. So yeah, delicious food, nutritious. I love them, but it's got to go at the bottom of the list, E tier for avocado. Tofu. I feel like it's hard for me to make a video without mentioning tofu somewhere in it, but tofu contains some omega-3s. So it contains 0.3 grams of omega-3s in 100 calories. But as we all know, it's pretty easy to eat 3 to 4 times that in a meal. And it does contain a decent amount of omega-6s too, which will hurt its score. But it's tofu. So I guess tofu belongs in the D tier. So the last one I have on my list here is algae oil. So this is like a plant-based omega-3 supplement made from microalgae. So the amount of omega-3s that you're gonna get from 100 calories of this is obviously gonna depend on the concentration of the supplement, what else is added along with there. Sometimes they add things like sunflower oil or other oils, is like carrier oil, I guess. But it's very concentrated. It's gonna provide us with the long chain DHA and EPA, which is very important, and it's going to give us around 7 grams of omega-3s per 100 calories. An algae-based omega-3 supplement is really going to be the only significant source of those long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA, that you're going to get on a plant-based diet. Sure, you can get a little bit from certain seaweeds and spirulina and chlorella, but it is a very, very minute amount. So I definitely do take a omega-3 supplement, and I actually take it in Veg Essential. This is like an all-in-one vegan-friendly multivitamin. It has a bunch of the stuff that vegans have to think about supplementing, like vitamin B12 and D3, and also omega-3s. So it has 225 milligrams of combined EPA and DHA in there, which I think is a good amount. So algae oil is gonna have to go right to the top of the list as an S-tier source of omega-3s on a plant-based diet. So that's it for my omega-3 tier list video. If I forgot anything or if I missed any that you think should have been in the list, definitely let me know. And if you disagree with any of these or you think they should have been moved around, let me know in the comments down below as well. I love hearing your opinions and reading your comments. So like the video if you enjoyed it, and if you learned something, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you soon in the next video. Here's some other videos of mine that I think you might like, and if you're looking for some delicious and healthy plant-based recipes, check out my new recipe ebook, Easy Vegan Comfort Meals. It contains over 60 plant-based recipes, lots of delicious sauces that I know you're gonna love. Thanks for watching, and thanks for the support.